Commander Zixthala stood on the bridge of the Galactic Confederation vessel Serenity's Edge, her 6 arms crossed in a display of military authority. At 8 feet tall with chitinous armor that gleamed under the ship's lights, she was an impressive sight even by Vorthan standards. Her species had conquered 17 star systems through pure warrior skill and tactical brilliance. No enemy had ever made them retreat. "Commander," her Lieutenant Crexmore called out, his voice carrying the clicking undertones of their native language. "The human vessel is requesting permission to dock." Zixthala's compound eyes focused on the view screen. The human ship looked strange compared to Confederation vessels. Where their ships were angular and armored, the human craft called New Horizons had smooth curves and large transparent sections. It looked almost fragile. "Grant permission," she ordered, "but keep weapons ready." The humans had been discovered only months ago on a planet the Science Division classified as a death world. The very term made most galactic species shudder. Death worlds were planets so hostile that life could barely survive on them. The few species that evolved on such worlds were typically aggressive, dangerous, and difficult to deal with. But these humans seemed different. Their initial communications had been polite, even friendly. They offered trade agreements and cultural exchanges instead of demands for territory. Some Confederation members thought the humans were weak. Zixthala wasn't so sure. The docking process completed smoothly. Zixthala watched through the security feeds as 3 humans walked through the airlock. They moved with a fluid grace that reminded her of predators she had fought on jungle worlds. Their movements were controlled, efficient, purposeful. The lead human was tall for his species, though still shorter than any Vorthan. He wore a simple blue uniform with captain's insignia. His eyes swept the corridor in a way that suggested he was mapping escape routes and defensive positions without seeming to do so. "Commander Zixthala," the human said through the translation device. His voice was calm and confident. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the New Horizons. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Behind him stood 2 other humans. One was a woman with dark hair and intelligent eyes who introduced herself as Chief Diplomat Amy Collins. The other was a man with lighter hair who gave his name as Cultural Liaison Ben Harper. "Captain Morrison," Zixthala replied, inclining her head slightly. "Your message mentioned a proposal for our 2 species." Jake smiled, showing his teeth. On most species, baring teeth was a threat display, but human facial expressions were confusing. The gesture seemed genuine and friendly. "We'd like to invite you and your senior officers to dinner aboard our ship," Jake said. "In human culture, sharing a meal is how we build trust and friendship. We'd be honored to prepare a traditional Earth feast for you." Lieutenant Veltan, Zixthala's tactical officer, shifted nervously. "Commander, eating with unknown species carries risks." Amy Collins stepped forward. "We understand your concerns. Our medical officer has prepared detailed nutritional information about everything we plan to serve. We want this to be safe and enjoyable for everyone." Ben Harper nodded enthusiastically. "Food is central to human culture. We celebrate, mourn, negotiate, and bond over shared meals. It's how we show respect and build relationships." Zixthala studied the humans carefully. Every species had customs, but most kept their important rituals private. The fact that humans wanted to share their traditions suggested either remarkable openness or dangerous naivety. "What kind of food do humans eat?" Crexmore asked. Jake's smile widened. "Earth has incredible diversity. We've prepared dishes from several different regions and cultures. Some might seem unusual to you, but that's part of the experience." "Unusual how?" Veltan pressed Amy and Ben exchanged a glance. "Well," Amy said slowly, "humans evolved as omnivores. We eat both plants and animals. Our taste preferences developed from millions of years of adaptation to Earth's environment. Earth is classified as a death world," Zixthala observed. "That's what your scientists called it," Ben agreed. "We just call it home. Yes, Earth can be challenging, but that's made us adaptable. We learned to find nutrition in many different sources." Jake gestured toward the docking bay. "The meal won't be ready for several hours. We thought you might like to tour our ship first, see how we live and work. Understanding our daily life might help you understand our food culture." This was interesting. Most diplomatic first contacts involved formal presentations in sterile conference rooms. The humans wanted to show them their living spaces, their personal areas. It suggested either tremendous confidence or complete lack of awareness about potential dangers. "Very well," Zixthala decided. My senior staff and I will accept your invitation. As they walked through the corridors of the human ship, Zixthala noticed more oddities. The walls had transparent sections showing the starfield outside. Most species preferred enclosed, secure spaces. Only apex predators were comfortable eating while watching for threats. The crew they passed seemed relaxed and friendly. They nodded to the aliens without fear or hostility. Some smiled and offered greetings. Their casual behavior was unsettling. Either these humans had no concept of danger, or they were so confident in their abilities that they saw no threat in armed Vorthon warriors walking through their ship. Your crew seems very calm, Veltan observed. Why wouldn't they be? Jake asked, seeming genuinely puzzled. You're our guests. We are an unknown warrior species, Crexmore pointed out. Most beings would be nervous. Amy tilted her head thoughtfully. Our history has taught us that the best way to handle potential conflicts is through understanding and communication. Fear and suspicion usually make problems worse. They reached the observation deck where dinner would be served. The room was a large transparent dome with a clear view of space in all directions. Stars glittered overhead like distant eyes. This is beautiful, Zixthala admitted. We thought you'd like it, Ben said. Humans find open spaces calming. There's something about seeing the infinite that puts our daily problems in perspective. The dining area was set with tables and chairs, designed to accommodate Vorthon physiology. Human crew members were making final preparations, moving with the coordinated efficiency of a military unit. Dinner will be ready soon, Jake announced. I think you're going to find this evening very educational. As Zixthala looked around the transparent room filled with confidently working humans, she felt the first stirring of unease. These beings from a death world were about to feed her species their traditional foods while sitting exposed under an open sky. Everything about the situation should have made the humans vulnerable. Instead, she was beginning to suspect that she and her warriors were the ones entering unknown territory. The human dining area felt wrong to Zixthala in ways she couldn't immediately explain. As she and her officers took their seats at the specially designed table, she realized what bothered her most. The transparent dome surrounding them offered a perfect view of the star field, but it also left them completely exposed. Beautiful view, isn't it? Captain Jake Morrison said as he settled into his chair across from her. There's nothing quite like dining under the stars. Lieutenant Crexmore shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Your species eats in the open? Whenever possible, Chief Diplomat Amy Collins replied with a warm smile. Humans prefer natural light and open spaces for important meals. Being outdoors makes food taste better. Veltan's tactical training made her scan the transparent walls for weak points. This position offers no defensive advantages. Cultural liaison. Ben Harper looked puzzled. Why would we need defensive advantages during dinner? Before anyone could answer, the kitchen doors opened and several humans emerged carrying serving equipment. At their head walked a woman with dark hair pulled back in a practical style. Her movements were precise and controlled as she directed her team. Commander Zixthala, Jake said, I'd like you to meet Chef Lisa Rodriguez, our head of food services. Lisa approached their table with a confidence that reminded Zixthala of her best soldiers entering battle. Behind her came two other humans, a man introduced as Carl Williams and a woman named Nina Torres. They moved with the coordinated efficiency of a special operations unit. Welcome aboard, Lisa said, her voice warm but professional. We've prepared a selection of traditional Earth dishes for you tonight. Each course represents different aspects of human culinary culture. Zixthala watched as the humans began their food preparation. What she saw made her compound eyes widen with growing concern. Lisa handled knives with surgical precision, each cut executed with the skill of a weapons master. Carl controlled open flames with casual expertise that suggested extensive experience with dangerous elements. Nina coordinated the service with the timing of a military operation. These are not food preparation slaves, Crexmore whispered in their native language. No, Zixthala replied quietly. These are specialists. Highly trained specialists. The first course arrived on simple white plates. Lisa placed one in front of each Vorthon with practiced ease. This is seared tuna with wasabi, she explained. The tuna is barely cooked, just heated on the surface to bring out the natural flavors. The green paste is made from a plant that grows wild on Earth. Zixthala stared at the plate in growing horror. The fish flesh was clearly raw in the center, red and pink like fresh meat from a recent kill. Humans were apparently comfortable eating creatures that had been apex predators in Earth's oceans. This is uncooked? Felton asked carefully. The best way to enjoy fresh tuna, Jake confirmed, already cutting into his portion. Cooking it too much ruins the texture. Amy took a generous amount of the green paste on her eating utensil and consumed it without hesitation. Immediately her eyes began to water and her face flushed, but she smiled with apparent pleasure. The wasabi has quite a kick, she said, her voice slightly strained. But that's part of what makes it special. Crexmore tentatively tried a small amount of the green substance. Within seconds he began convulsing, as his respiratory system reacted to what his scanner identified as a potent neurotoxin. The humans immediately rushed to help, offering water and expressing genuine concern. "I'm so sorry," Lisa said, clearly distressed by Crexmore's reaction. "We should have warned you to use much less." Dr. Katie Morgan, the ship's physician, appeared quickly with medical equipment. She examined Crexmore with professional efficiency while explaining the situation. "Wasabi contains compounds that evolved as a defense mechanism," she said calmly. "Most Earth plants developed chemical weapons to prevent being eaten. Humans evolved tolerance to many of these natural toxins. Your plants wage chemical warfare?" Felton asked in disbelief. "Not warfare exactly," Ben explained. "More like an evolutionary arms race. Plants developed defenses and animals developed ways to overcome those defenses. Humans just got really good at it." Katie continued her examination of Crexmore while speaking casually about human evolution. "Our ancestors survived ice ages, continental droughts, and massive climate changes. We learned to extract nutrition from whatever we could find, even if it fought back." The casual way she discussed surviving planetary catastrophes made Zixthala exchange worried glances with her officers. These humans spoke of world-ending disasters as minor inconveniences their species had overcome. "Ice ages?" Crexmore asked weakly as he recovered. "Periods when our planet became much colder," Amy explained. "The ice sheets covered most of the northern continents. Human tribes had to adapt or die. Those who learned to find food in the worst conditions were the ones who survived to become our ancestors." Jake cut another piece of the raw fish and ate it with obvious enjoyment. "That's why we developed such diverse food cultures. Different human populations learned to survive in different environments using different resources." As Zixthala watched the humans consume their first course, she began to understand something disturbing. The tuna was a predator fish from Earth's oceans. The wasabi was a plant that had evolved chemical weapons for self-defense. The humans were casually eating things that would harm or kill most galactic species. "Your planet required you to consume dangerous substances to survive?" she asked. "Not just consume them," Lisa said, returning from the kitchen with preparations for the next course. "We learned to enjoy them. The burn from wasabi, the richness of raw fish, the complexity of fermented foods. Survival became pleasure." Carl Williams brought out several bottles filled with dark liquid. "Speaking of fermented foods, we've selected some wines to accompany the meal." Nina Torres began pouring the liquid into glasses while explaining its origin. "These are made from grapes that have been processed by controlled bacterial action. The alcohol content varies from 12 to 15%. Felton's scanner immediately identified the liquid as a potent solvent that would be toxic to most known species, yet the humans were preparing to drink it for pleasure. "This contains ethyl alcohol," she said in amazement. "Industrial solvent." "Among other things," Jake agreed cheerfully. "Alcohol kills harmful bacteria and parasites in food. Our ancestors learned that fermented beverages were often safer than water in many environments." Dr. Morgan raised her glass in what appeared to be a ritual gesture. "Humans probably developed better alcohol tolerance after we invented agriculture and started making beer and wine regularly." "You deliberately poisoned yourselves to avoid worse poisoning?" Crexmore asked. "We adapted," Amy corrected gently. "That's what humans do. We find ways to turn survival challenges into advantages." As the evening progressed, Zixthala realized she was witnessing something unprecedented in her military career. The humans weren't trying to intimidate them with displays of strength or superior technology. Instead, they were casually demonstrating that their everyday survival practices involved consuming substances that would incapacitate or kill most galactic species. The worst part was how genuinely friendly and welcoming they were while doing it. These humans were sharing their most intimate cultural practices, treating substances that registered as biochemical weapons like ordinary food and drink. Zixthala looked around the transparent dome at her gracious hosts and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. Her warriors had come expecting to evaluate a primitive Deathworld species. Instead, they were having dinner with beings who considered industrial solvents a beverage and neurotoxins a condiment. The second course arrived with ceremony that made Zixthala's warriors instinctively tense. Chef Lisa Rodriguez returned with her team, but this time they wheeled in heating equipment that produced open flames. The humans worked around fire with the casual ease of beings who had mastered one of the universe's most dangerous elements. Tonight's second course represents the cuisine of Earth's Mexico region, Lisa announced proudly. Behind her, a human named Marco Delgado arranged colorful dishes on portable heating surfaces. We're serving authentic preparations that have been enjoyed by humans for thousands of years. The smell that filled the dining area made Crexmore's respiratory system flare in alarm. His scanner immediately identified multiple chemical compounds that registered on the Confederation's biochemical warfare detection systems. Those are weapon-grade irritants, Felton whispered in their native language. I know, Zixthala replied quietly, watching the humans work with obvious pleasure around substances that could incapacitate entire military units. Marco served each alien a plate containing what appeared to be standard protein and grain combinations, but the colors were unnaturally bright. Red, green, and yellow substances covered the food in amounts that suggested either complete ignorance of toxicity levels or incredible tolerance for dangerous chemicals. This is traditional Mexican cuisine, Marco explained with genuine enthusiasm. The peppers we use range from mild bell peppers to habaneros and ghost peppers. Each variety has different heat levels and flavor profiles. Security Chief Tom Bradley was already eating his portion with obvious enjoyment, sweat beading on his forehead, but a smile on his face. I love the burn, he said cheerfully. The hotter the better. The burn? Crexmore asked weakly. Capsaicin, explained Engineer Pete Johnson, consuming his own plate with equal enthusiasm. It's the compound that makes peppers hot. It triggers pain receptors in most species, but humans developed tolerance over thousands of years of cultivation and consumption. Zixthala stared at the human in disbelief. You intentionally consume substances that cause pain? Not just tolerate it, Tom corrected, taking another large bite of the spiced food. We crave it. The burn releases endorphins that make us feel good. We actually seek out stronger and stronger peppers for the experience. Dr. Katie Morgan, who had been monitoring the aliens' vital signs throughout the meal, provided a clinical explanation while consuming her own portion of what her scanner identified as military-grade chemical weapons. Capsaicin evolved as a defense mechanism, she said calmly. Plants developed it to prevent mammals from eating their seeds, but humans learned to enjoy the sensation and actually helped spread the plants by cultivating them. You formed partnerships with plants that were trying to poison you? Felton asked in amazement. Humans excel at turning adversarial relationships into beneficial ones, Cultural Liaison Ben Harper replied, his eyes watering from the peppers, but his expression content. We took plants that didn't want to be eaten and bred them to be even more potent, then made them a central part of our food culture. Navigator Chris Anderson joined the conversation while consuming what appeared to be liquid fire. My grandfather grew ghost peppers in his garden for fun. Used to enter hot pepper eating contests at local festivals. Contests? Zixthala felt her worldview shifting as the implications became clear. Competitive consumption of increasingly dangerous plant toxins, Amy Collins confirmed. Humans turn survival challenges into entertainment. The wine service continued with selections that Chief Sommelier Grace Liu described as full-bodied reds with complex notes. The alcohol concentrations would have been immediately fatal to most Confederation species, yet the humans consumed them while maintaining perfect coordination and clear judgment. This particular vintage, Grace explained, pouring a dark liquid that registered as industrial solvent, comes from grapes grown in volcanic soil. The harsh growing conditions stress the plants and concentrate the flavors. Volcanic soil? Crexmore's voice carried a note of hysteria. You cultivate food crops in geological disaster zones? Some of our best wines come from the most challenging environments, Grace replied cheerfully. Stress makes the grapes develop more complex characteristics. Navigation Officer Chris Anderson mentioned casually that his family owned land in what he called Tornado Alley. When pressed for details, he explained that it was a region where massive, atmospheric disturbances regularly destroyed everything in their path. Tornado season keeps us on our toes, he said with the casual tone most species reserve for discussing weather patterns. But the soil is incredibly fertile after the storms pass. Through Science Officer Dr. Rachel, Kim provided scientific context while consuming alcohol concentrations that would have killed most beings within minutes. Human alcohol tolerance developed over millions of years of evolution. Our ancestors needed to consume fermented foods to survive in environments where fresh food spoiled quickly. Fermented foods? Felton asked weakly. Controlled decomposition, Rachel explained matter-of-factly. We learned to use beneficial bacteria to break down organic matter in ways that preserved nutrition while killing harmful pathogens. She paused thoughtfully while consuming more of the toxic beverage. We probably developed even better tolerance after we invented agriculture. Once humans started making beer and wine regularly, natural selection favored those who could process alcohol efficiently. The casual discussion of evolutionary adaptation to industrial toxins made Zixthala realized that she was observing something unprecedented in galactic history. These humans weren't just surviving exposure to dangerous substances. They had evolved to crave them, cultivate them, and turn them into social bonding experiences. Marco returned from the kitchen with additional preparations that made the air itself dangerous to breathe. For those who want extra heat, we have some sauces made with Carolina Reapers and Trinidad Scorpions. You named your food toxins after venomous creatures? Crexmore asked in disbelief. The names reflect their intensity, Tom Bradley replied, already adding the sauce to his food. Ghost peppers, deathcaps, Carolina Reapers. Humans like colorful names for things that might kill us. Might kill you? Felton's voice reached a higher pitch. Figure of speech, Pete Johnson laughed, though sweat was now pouring down his face from the chemical assault he was voluntarily inflicting on himself. Though some of these peppers can cause serious medical problems if you're not careful, the humans continued their meal with obvious pleasure, discussing the various ways their species had learned to extract nutrition and enjoyment from substances that would qualify as weapons of mass destruction in most galactic legal systems. As Zixthala watched her hosts consume their Deathworld feast, she began to understand that she and her warriors weren't witnessing a demonstration of human toughness. This was simply how humans lived. They had evolved on a planet so hostile that they needed to develop tolerance for biological warfare agents just to have dinner. The most terrifying part was how genuinely friendly and welcoming they remained, while casually poisoning themselves for entertainment. The main course arrived with a presentation that made Zixthala question everything she thought she knew about galactic food chains. Environmental specialist Dan Parker wheeled in a cart carrying what appeared to be a section of muscle tissue from a massive creature. The smell of cooked flesh filled the observation deck, triggering predator recognition responses in all three Vorthons. This is what we call prime rib, Dan explained with obvious pride as he began carving thick slices from the roasted meat. It comes from cattle that we raise specifically for food production. The casual way he handled the carving tools reminded Zixthala of weapon masters she had trained with. Every cut was precise, controlled, and executed with the confidence of someone who had performed this task thousands of times. Cattle? Lieutenant Crexmore asked weakly. Domesticated descendants of aurochs, marine biologist Dr. Janet Foster explained while accepting her portion of the meat. Aurochs were massive herbivores that lived wild on Earth until humans hunted them to extinction about 400 years ago. You hunted an entire species to extinction? Felton's voice carried a note of awe that was part admiration and part terror. Not intentionally, Communications Officer Troy Martinez clarified while cutting into his serving. We were just very effective hunters. The wild aurochs couldn't compete with human efficiency. Dr. Foster continued the explanation, while consuming flesh from creatures that had once been among Earth's largest land animals. But before the wild aurochs disappeared, humans had captured some and began selective breeding programs. We turned them into cattle. Selective breeding? Zixthala felt her understanding of human capability expanding in disturbing directions. Environmental engineer Diane Roberts joined the conversation while enjoying her portion of engineered meat. Humans have been modifying other species for thousands of years. We took aggressive wild animals and bred them to be docile, productive, and nutritionally optimal. We didn't just survive in competition with other predators, Janet explained matter-of-factly. We eliminated them as competition, then domesticated their prey species, then spent millennia genetically modifying them to better serve our nutritional needs. The systematic nature of human dominance over their entire planetary ecosystem was becoming clear to the Vorthons. These beings hadn't just adapted to their death world, they had conquered it completely and reshaped it to serve their purposes. How many species have you modified? Crexmore asked in fascination and horror. Agricultural specialist Roy Chen answered while cutting another piece of the engineered meat. Hundreds, probably thousands if you count all the plant varieties. Corn, wheat, rice, soybeans, potatoes. Most of our major food crops can't even survive in the wild anymore. They're completely dependent on human cultivation. You created species that cannot exist without you? Felton's tactical mind was struggling to process the implications. That's just the beginning, Diane added cheerfully. We've terraformed entire continents, replacing native ecosystems with agricultural systems designed for maximum food production. Troy mentioned that his weekend hobby was deep-sea fishing, which he described as hunting marine predators in the crushing depths of Earth's oceans. The pressure down there would kill most land creatures instantly, but humans figured out how to build equipment that lets us hunt in environments that should be impossible to reach. You hunt in your planet's deepest waters for recreation? Sixathala's voice carried disbelief. Best fishing is where the big predators live, Troy replied with enthusiasm. Marlins, sharks, giant tuna. The more dangerous the fish, the more exciting the hunt. Diane Roberts mentioned that she enjoyed mountain climbing, which involved voluntarily exposing herself to atmospheric conditions that would be lethal without proper equipment. There's something special about reaching a peak where the air is too thin to breathe normally. The challenge makes the accomplishment meaningful. You intentionally seek out environments that will kill you? Felton asked. That's where humans excel, Dan Parker replied while serving additional portions of the modified meat. We're not the strongest or fastest species on our planet, but we're the most adaptable. Give us a challenge and we'll figure out how to not just survive it, but master it. Roy Chen described how human agriculture had transformed entire continents. We moved rivers, leveled mountains, and changed the chemistry of soil across millions of square kilometers. When natural environments didn't produce enough food, we rebuilt them from scratch. The scale of planetary modification was staggering to the Vortons. Their own species had conquered worlds through military might. But the humans had apparently redesigned their entire planet to optimize resource production. The cattle you're eating, Janet continued, represent about 12,000 years of continuous genetic modification. We took wild aurochs that would charge and kill humans on sight, and turned them into docile animals that depend on us for survival. And we optimized them for food production, Roy added. Modern cattle produce far more meat per animal than their wild ancestors. We've basically turned them into living food factories. Troy described his fishing expeditions in terms that made them sound like military operations. You have to understand the predator's behavior, know the water conditions, use the right equipment for the environment. It's a chess match between human intelligence and animal instinct. And humans usually win, Diane observed with satisfaction. Dr. Foster provided more context about human impact on their homeworld ecosystem. Humans have been the dominant species on Earth for so long that most other large predators exist only in controlled environments. We manage their populations, control their territories, and decide which species continue to exist. The conversation continued as the humans consumed their engineered meat and discussed their weekend recreational activities. Pilot Stephen Clark mentioned that he enjoyed extreme skiing, which involved deliberately descending dangerous mountain slopes at high speed for entertainment. Weather specialist Helen Price described her hobby of storm chasing, where humans deliberately drove vehicles toward dangerous weather phenomena to observe them. Tornadoes, hurricanes, severe thunderstorms. There's something amazing about getting close to the raw power of natural forces. Geologist Frank Ward discussed earthquake preparedness as routine safety training that all humans learned. Living on a geologically active planet means being ready for the ground to literally shift under your feet. We just build our cities to handle it and keep going. As Zixthala listened to the humans casually discuss terraforming continents, genetically engineering entire species and hunting apex predators for recreation, she realized that her understanding of the Galactic order had been fundamentally wrong. The Vorthans had built their reputation by conquering other species through superior military technology and warrior skill. But the humans had approached dominance from a completely different direction. They had systematically reshaped their entire world, eliminated or domesticated all competing species, and turned planetary-scale environmental challenges into recreational activities. The most disturbing part was that they had done all of this while maintaining their friendly, welcoming attitude. They weren't boasting about their capabilities or trying to intimidate anyone. They were simply sharing their normal life experiences, which happened to involve the complete domination of a Deathworld ecosystem as she watched Captain Jake Morrison cheerfully serve dessert while discussing humanity's next planned expedition to explore a gas giant storm systems. Zixthala realized that her warriors had not come to evaluate a primitive species. They were having dinner with the apex predator species of the most dangerous planet in known space. Dessert arrived as the stars wheeled overhead through the transparent dome, and with it came stories that made Zixthala understand the true scope of what her species had encountered. Pastry chef Mia Roberts presented elaborate confections containing sugar concentrations that would trigger immediate diabetic shock in most galactic species. These are traditional Earth desserts, Mia explained while arranging plates of colorful sweets that registered as toxic on Vorthan scanners. Chocolate cake, fruit tarts, and ice cream made from dairy products. The humans consumed the desserts with obvious pleasure while continuing their casual conversation about life on their homeworld. What emerged was not boasting or intimidation, but simple storytelling that revealed the everyday reality of human existence. Pilot Stephen Clark mentioned surviving a Category 5 hurricane during his childhood, as if discussing a minor inconvenience. The wind speeds reached over 200 kilometers per hour. Our house was destroyed, but the community shelter held up fine. We rebuilt afterward and installed better storm windows. Weather specialist Helen Price nodded in understanding. Hurricane season is just part of life in the coastal regions. We track the storms, prepare our homes, and ride them out. Most people have their emergency supplies ready from June through November. Your planet regularly produces weather phenomena that destroy your settlements? Craigsmore asked in amazement. Every year, Helen confirmed cheerfully while eating ice cream that would have poisoned most species. Hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, droughts, blizzards. Earth keeps us busy with natural disasters. Geologist Frank Ward laughed while consuming chocolate that contained enough caffeine to kill smaller species. Don't forget earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis. I grew up in California where earthquake preparedness is taught in elementary school. Children learn to survive geological catastrophes. Felton's voice carried a note of disbelief. Basic safety, Frank replied casually. Drop cover and hold on when the ground starts shaking. Keep emergency supplies ready. Know your evacuation routes. Standard stuff. The casual way humans discuss surviving. Events that would end civilizations on most worlds made. Zixthala realized that the dinner conversation had been consistently revealing deeper truths about human capability. Security analyst Emma Baker contributed her own story while eating dessert that would have sent most beings into sugar shock. My sister runs ultramarathons. She voluntarily subjects herself to running over 160 kilometers through desert terrain for fun. She does this for entertainment? Zixthala asked weakly. The physical and mental challenge, Emma explained. Humans enjoy pushing our bodies to their limits. Ultramarathons, Ironman competitions, mountain climbing expeditions. We compete to see who can endure the most difficult conditions. Medical technician Victor Reed mentioned that his father had worked in construction well into his 70s, performing manual labor that would challenge warriors from most species. Humans stay physically active much longer than most people realize. Age doesn't stop us from working or pursuing challenging activities. The conversation revealed that human recreational activities routinely involved exposing themselves to conditions that would be considered torture by most galactic standards. Adventure Guide. Jerry Stone showed pictures from his latest rock climbing expedition, where humans deliberately scaled vertical cliff faces using minimal equipment. Free climbing, he explained with obvious enthusiasm. Just you, the rock, and gravity. The key is reading the stone, finding the holds, and trusting your training. You climb vertical surfaces without safety equipment, Felton asked in horror. Some people use safety gear, Jerry admitted. But free climbing is about the pure relationship between human capability and natural challenge. The stories continued as dessert progressed. Construction supervisor Linda Gray described working in conditions that ranged from Arctic cold to desert heat, building structures designed to withstand earthquakes, hurricanes, and floods. Good engineering accounts for environmental stress. We build things to last no matter what the planet throws at them. Logistics officer Sam Brooks mentioned that his hobby was cave exploration, which involved descending into underground systems where a single mistake could be fatal. There's something magical about being the first human to see chambers that have been hidden for millions of years. Adventure. Sports instructor Carol Davis taught humans to participate in activities that deliberately put them in dangerous situations. Whitewater rafting, rock climbing, wilderness survival courses. People pay me to help them safely experience dangerous conditions. Safely experience danger? Crexmore's voice carried confusion and awe. Controlled risk, Carol explained. Humans need challenge to feel fully alive. We've learned to manage dangerous activities so we can enjoy the thrill without unnecessary casualties. As the evening drew to a close, Captain Jake Morrison raised a toast with his officers. The gesture was simple and warm, but the context made it terrifying to the Vorthans. To new friendships across the stars, Jake said, and the humans raised their glasses of industrial solvent in a ritual that somehow managed to be both threatening and genuinely welcoming. Tomorrow we're planning a hiking expedition to explore the asteroid field near the neutron star, Jake mentioned casually. The radiation environment should provide some interesting challenges for our geological survey team. The humans discussed their plans to voluntarily expose themselves to radiation levels that would sterilize most species, treating it as an exciting research opportunity rather than a death sentence. As the Vorthans prepared to return to their ship, Zixathala found herself unable to move beyond the observation deck windows. She watched the human vessel New Horizons prepare for departure, its crew cheerfully making final preparations for what they considered their next adventure. Her warriors stood beside her in stunned silence, finally understanding what they had encountered. For the first time in their military careers, the legendary Vortan warriors knew what it felt like to meet something truly alien. These humans weren't trying to intimidate anyone. They weren't displaying superior technology or making threats. They had simply shared a normal evening meal that revealed them to be a species so fundamentally adapted to surviving impossible conditions that they treated the entire galaxy as a pleasant vacation. "Destination, Commander," Crexmore said quietly. "What do we report to Confederation Command?" Zixathala watched the human ship's engines ignite with controlled nuclear fusion that the crew managed as casually as making tea. Captain Morrison had mentioned that they were heading toward a system where the primary star was experiencing solar flares that would destroy most electronic equipment. "We report exactly what we observed," she said finally. "We encountered a species that evolved on a planet so dangerous that basic survival required them to develop capabilities that make our greatest warriors look like children playing at being soldiers." Veltan remained fixed at the observation window as the human vessel disappeared into hyperspace. "They invited us to share their most sacred cultural ritual. They fed us their traditional foods and told us stories of their homeworld." "And what did we learn?" Zixathala asked. "That we have been thinking about danger and survival in completely inadequate terms," Veltan replied. "These humans don't just survive their death world. They've made themselves into something that treats surviving the impossible as a social activity." As the Serenity's Edge prepared to depart, Zixathala composed her official report to Confederation Command. After long consideration, she settled on a simple recommendation. Immediate diplomatic alliance with human species strongly advised. Analysis suggests they consider the entire galaxy a comfortable environment, suitable for recreational activities. Recommend treating them as valuable allies rather than potential threats. As any species capable of turning a death world into a pleasant home represents capabilities beyond current Confederation understanding. In her personal log, she added a note that would puzzle Confederation analysts for years. "Human dinner conversation more educational than most military intelligence briefings. Species appears to have solved survival so completely that they now pursue danger for entertainment. Suggest all future contact protocols assume humans are far more capable than initial assessments indicated." The Vorthans departed with a new understanding of their place in the galactic order. They had come as proud warriors to evaluate a primitive species, They left knowing they had shared a meal with beings who made survival itself look easy.